So what happens when the very law that's supposed to protect people is twisted and used as a tool for a lie? Well, today, we're diving into a landmark case from the Allahabad High Court that honestly reads more like a thriller than a legal document. It's a story about a calculated fraud that really shook the justice system to its core. And that right there is the big question at the heart of this case. You see, the Domestic Violence Act was created to be a shield, something to protect the vulnerable. But this case makes us ask a really tough question. What happens when someone decides to use that shield as a weapon? All right, so our story starts with a woman named Prathamis Singh. She goes to court, files an application under the Domestic Violence Act of 2005, and tells a story that, on the surface seems pretty straightforward. It looks like a classic case of a victim who needs the law's help. So here's the story she presented to the court. She said she was just a student, no job, no income, completely dependent on her family. She claimed she'd been forced out of her home and needed financial support to survive. It's a really compelling, sympathetic picture, right? And at first, it looked like the system was working just as it should. A magistrate awarded 1,000 rupees, but then a higher court, the Sessions Court, looked at her husband's income and bumped that interim maintenance up to 5,000 rupees a month. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. But then, her husband, Chiranjeev Kumar Arya, he appeals to the High Court. And this is where the story you think you know starts to completely fall apart, revealing something much, much darker underneath. Just look at this. The contrast is absolutely shocking. The husband brings evidence that doesn't just poke holes in his wife's story, it completely blows it out of the water. She claimed she was a student. He came with proof that she was actually a practicing lawyer. And this wasn't just some vague claim. The evidence was concrete. She had a bar council enrollment number and was actively showing up in other court cases as a lawyer. Not only that, but she was allegedly running a coaching center and, get this, had 8 different bank accounts. This wasn't a vulnerable victim. This was a professional who had, it seemed, deliberately lied to the court about her entire situation. But if you think hiding her income was bad, hold on, because that was really just the tip of the iceberg. As they dug deeper, they uncovered a level of professional misconduct that was so bold it was basically a direct assault on the court itself. This is just wild. Turns out, the wife's own lawyer, a man named Pal Singh Yadav, was using a stolen identity. The professional enrollment number on his paperwork actually belonged to a completely different lawyer, Shri Shivpal Singh, who had no clue his identity was being used like this. It was straight-up impersonation in a court of law. And let me tell you, the High Court did not hold back. They called this a most sacrilegious act, which is just incredibly strong language. They saw this not as a simple mistake, but as a deep betrayal of the trust that the entire legal system is built on. This was now, without a doubt, a case of fraud upon the court. So you think, okay, fraud is proven, case closed, right? Well, not so fast. In a bizarre twist, the wife's new lawyers argued that the High Court couldn't even hear the case in the first place. They claimed the court had no jurisdiction, no legal authority to intervene. Could the court's hands actually be tied? Okay, so to understand this, we got to talk about something called revisional jurisdiction. Think of it like this. It's the power the High Court has, under the Criminal Procedure Code, to act as a kind of super referee. It can look at what a lower court did and make sure everything was legal, correct, and that justice was actually served. So this created a huge legal showdown. The wife's team argued that the Domestic Violence Act is its own special thing, a self-contained law, which meant the lower court's decision was final. But the husband's team fired back, saying, whoa, not so fast. They pointed out that the DV Act itself says it's governed by the Criminal Procedure Code, which gives the High Court the power to step in to stop a massive injustice like this one. So, what do? On one side, you have a law that's designed to give quick relief to victims. On the other, you have a case built on a foundation of lies and fraud. Which one wins out? The court's ruling was powerful and clear. The case was absolutely maintainable. The judge basically said that no special law can strip the High Court of its fundamental duty to prevent the abuse of the legal process. This set a hugely important precedent for any case like this in the future. To really hammer the point home, the court pulled out this ancient and incredibly powerful legal principle. What it means is simple but profound. Fraud cancels out everything. Any decision, any judgment that's obtained through a lie is basically null and void from the very start. It simply cannot be allowed to stand. And the High Court didn't just stop there. They took sweeping action. First, they threw out both of the previous maintenance orders. Then, they sent the case all the way back to the beginning to be decided on the real facts. And crucially, they ordered a criminal investigation into the lawyer for impersonation and banned him from court. They sent a very, very clear message. So at the end of the day, what are the big takeaways from this whole thing? Well, there are two massive ones. First, high courts absolutely have the power to review Domestic Violence Act cases to stop an injustice. And second, and this is so important, if you lie to the court, if you conceal the truth to get an advantage, that's considered fraud. And fraud unravels everything. Ultimately, this case is such a stark reminder that our justice system depends not just on the laws we write, but on the basic honesty of the people who come before it. And it leaves you with a really chilling question to think about. Thanks for watching.